Once, in a land where the wind carved stories into stone and the grass bent in reverence to the sky, there was a boy named Nilo. His hair was dark and tousled like a storm cloud. His eyes held the quiet owl of early dawn, blue-gray, watching, wondering. He lived in a village called Willowfen, nestled in a soft bowl of valleys where the hills rolled like sleeping beasts and the sky always seemed just a little too close. In Willowfen, everything leaned just a little to the left, from the cottages with their crooked chimneys to the trees with their wind-bent trunks. Even the people, it was said, walked slightly sideways from years of bracing against sudden gust. They were a cautious, practical folk, bakers who didn't bother frosting their cake. Why tempt the wind to steal the sugar? Weavers who tied their looms to the floor, cobbler shops had doors that opened inward only. Generations ago, their ancestors had struck a pact with the Wind Queen, a sovereign spirit of storms and whispers, whose power once threatened to scatter the entire valley like petals in a tempest. According to the old stories, the Wind Queen had been wild and beautiful and terrible. Wearing a crown of thunder, her laughter capable of felling forests, her grief enough to flood whole fields. She ruled the high air and the low skies. She carried secrets across mountains and heard every breath ever heard before a kiss or a lie. It was said she fell in love once with the mortal bard who tried to bind her name into a song. He vanished into the clouds, harp string hanging like a spider web from the trees. Since then, the pact had been kept. No kites, no sails, no windmills, and most secret of all, never tried to bottle the wind. But Nilo had never been good at doing what he was told. Even as a baby, he stretched out his hands when the breeze touched him, cawing and gargling at empty air. He wandered from a young age, standing on stones and talking to the sky as if it could answer. And sometimes, just sometimes, it did. The wind would answer him not in words, but in signs. The sudden rustle of firm leaves, a gust that carried the smell of pine forest or smoky deserts far away. Once, during a late autumn nap under an apple tree, the wind tossed down a leaf with gold flecks that did not grow in any Willowfen grove. Another time, it brought a feather of such iridescence that even the village magpie watched in awe. When Nilo was 12, he asked the wind, "Where do you go when I sleep?" The wind curled around him like a cat, warm and secretive. By 14, he kept a journal of its moods, what it smelled like, what it sounded like, how it danced. He had learned to tell its mood by the sound it made moving through a wooden fence or across the lake's surface. He swore the wind had a name, but it only whispered it once and never again. The Wind Queen is listening. Child, his grandmother warned. Her name was Fena, and though blind now, her hands still found the truth in herbs and tea leaves. She had once been a herb witch of no small renown. Though the villagers barely spoke of it, she was the only one who didn't scold Nilo's questions. Perhaps she remembered what it was to be curious. "I just want to understand," Nilo would say. "Not trap, just know." But the line between those two things, Fena said, was finer than a spider's thread. One spring, after a night when the wind had sung like a lullaby of a land no map held, Nilo decided he would try, not for glory, not for magic, but for truth, to bottle the wind. He began preparation in secret. He scavenged silver from old jewelry, gifts from Fena, and coins from the traveling traders who feared the valley's wind but came anyway for its honey and herbs. He melted it down and combined it with sand taken from the river's curve beneath the ancient willows, sand that shimmered faintly even in the dark. Under Fena's watchful gaze and whispered instruction, he made a glass, not ordinary glass, but moon glass, clear as breath and soft enough to hum and touch. He shaped 7 bottles, each under the moon's gaze, cooling them in rose water and elder smoke. Their stoppers were carved from juniper wood soaked in starlight tea and bound in threads spun from Fena's last silken shawl. "Why 7?" she asked. "Because 7 is the number of change, and because 7 is the number of winds I felt in the past month alone." On the 7th night of the 7th week, Nilo climbed the wind's hollow. The hill was older than the village. Some said older than the pact itself. Its top was bowed and ridged with stones older than memory. The moon hung low and gold. The wind arrived. It came slow, curious. It brushed his face and tugged at his sleeves. He held out the first bottle and whispered, "I just want to know." The wind spiraled inside like a dancer, his silted heart hammering. Each bottle captured a different spirit. One sounded like wolves crying in pine valleys, another like bells held through snows, one buzzed faintly electric with the storm, another smelled of honey and longing. He cocked them all, labeled each with secret symbols, and carried them home beneath the hush of a sleeping world. But the wind had been watching. It turned sharp one day, bitter the next. Trees bent, birds flew crooked. By the end of the week, Willowfen was in chaos. Storms tore across the sky like battle hymns. The cobbler's roof vanished, the baker's chimneys collapsed, the bees vanished from the gardens, windows shattered at a whisper. The villagers gathered in the square, eyes wide, clutching old charms. "The Wind Queen remembers," cried Elder Moss. "We are undone." No one confessed, but Nilo could no longer sleep. The air in his room moved even when the shutters were bolted. One night, the kind of silence that precedes something enormous, and then a voice. "You took what is mine." She stepped from the shadow, tall as sky, her eyes a storm's core, her limbs made of fog and moonlight. Her breath stirred the curtains. Her fingers left froze behind. Are you the wind queen? I am the breath of old mountains. I am the sigh of dying kings. I am every song you ever forgot. I didn't want to harm. I only wanted to know, he said. She stepped closer. You cannot understand the sky by caging its breath. You cannot love the birds and steal its wings. He looked down. Then take them back. Take all the winds I bottled. Would you give your own voice if I demanded it? She asked. No, he said quietly, but I wouldn't keep yours anymore. A bargain then? Return what is mine and give something in its place. What price? The boy asked. Her eyes shimmered. The knowing, the listening, the language. You will still feel me, but you will never hear me again. He hesitated, but he nodded. The next morning, he climbed Wind's Hollow and placed the 7 bottles on the stones. The wind rose on certain Peter. He opened the first bottle, the wind sang. He opened the second, the third, one shrieked, one wept, one whispered secrets only he understood. He opened the 6th, then came the 7th. What happens after this? He asked. The queen appeared beside him, not as storms, but as a woman with clouded hair and eyes like mist. You will forget the taste of my voice, but you will remember that I once spoke to you. He opened the final bottle. The wind didn't flee. It wrapped around him, full and furious and full of love. But one moment he knew it, truly knew it. It felt the top of every mountain, the cry of every wind-swept child, the silence of a sky with no breath. Then it was gone, and with it, the voice of the wind. From that day forward, Nilo could no longer hear the wind's secret. No more whispers in the eaves, no more scent of distant fire or poems in the rustling leaves, but he never spoke of regret. Nilo became a glass blower, like his grandmother. His work was unmatched. Flutes shaped like birdsong, vases that shimmered with frost, windows that caught the sun said just so. People came from distant towns to see his creations and to sit in the garden where the wind always seemed a little gentler. Years passed. One spring, a girl knocked on his door. She had eyes like thunder, clouds, and wind tangled her hair. Tell me about the wind, she said. Nilo smiled, and he began. Once, there was a boy who battled the wind. And if you listen, even now, to the wind outside the old glass blower's cottage, it sometimes sighs like a lullaby, as if it remembers, as if it forgives, as if it still, in some secret ways, loves the boy who once listened better than the most. This was when Nilo was already years older, long from being a young child anymore, explaining his experience he had with the Wind Queen after many years, when a little girl of about his age when he was still young came knocking with questions. Please subscribe to watch more of our videos. Thank you.